How do you let that word come out of your mouth?
I shouldn't have. I'm disgusted and I'm sorry. That's not the type of person I am.
From Riley Cooper, who shouted racial slurs at a concert and fractured his own locker room, to Richie Incognito, who tormented a black teammate with racist voicemails, and Bill Romanowski, who spat in a black player's face on national television. The NFL has witnessed undeniable acts of racism. In this video, we're exposing the players who were caught in moments that can never be erased. Let's begin with Riley Cooper. Once seen as a rising star, Cooper's NFL career was permanently defined by one explosive moment that unmasked a disturbing racial bias. The Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver, drafted in the 5th round out of the University of Florida, appeared destined for success with his 6 feet 4 inches frame and solid route running. Cooper contributed to championship squads in college and was establishing himself as a dependable target in Philadelphia's offense, recording 23 receptions for 248 yards in 2012. But on June 8, 2013, during a Kenny Chesney concert at Lincoln Financial Field, his true character surfaced in the most devastating way possible. Intoxicated and denied backstage access by a black security guard, Cooper completely lost control. The video, published by Crossing Broad on July 31st, 2013, instantly ignited a media firestorm. The clip showed Cooper visibly enraged, pointing, shouting, and repeating the racial slur multiple times, his expression twisted with fury as he lashed out at security staff just doing their jobs. What made it even more destructive was the setting. This wasn't a private slip-up. It was a public eruption of racial hostility inside the Eagles' home stadium. Thousands of fans, including countless black supporters, witnessed the ugliness firsthand, turning what should have been a festive concert into an atmosphere of humiliation and anger. The aftermath exposed a fragile racial balance within NFL locker rooms, where players are forced to coexist amid painful realities of bias. Eagles quarterback Carrie Williams later admitted the event deeply disturbed him, leading to a heated practice altercation where he had to swallow his pride in a league that often compels black athletes to suppress their emotions toward racism. When asked how someone could spew such language while sharing a locker room with mostly black teammates, Cooper's answers reflected deep remorse mixed with carefully managed public relations strategy.
Locker room where the majority of your teammates are black. How do you let that word come out of your mouth?
I shouldn't have. I'm disgusted and I'm sorry. That's not the type of person I am. And I wasn't raised that way.
Cooper's public apology centered mainly on his personal humiliation and regret, rather than acknowledging the wider damage inflicted on black communities. The Eagles fined him an estimated 6-figure amount and ordered mandatory sensitivity training. Yet despite the outrage, he missed only a handful of practices before returning for the full season. While Riley Cooper's racist meltdown was a drunken lapse of judgment caught on tape, the next NFL player took racial torment to an entirely new level through deliberate, systematic cruelty.
It's really stupid to force younger players to pick up your restaurant bills and pay for your trip.
You're millionaires.
I mean, how cheap are you? Dude, you're in the NFL for 9 years. You have a lot of money. These rookies who are here on contracts are not even guaranteed. You're making them pay and carry your bag.
Abuse. Richie Incognito. The Miami Dolphins offensive guard found himself at the center of a 2013 scandal that exposed a shocking pattern of sustained racial harassment toward his black teammate Jonathan Martin. Known for his ferocious playing style and multiple Pro Bowl honors, Incognito's career had always been built on aggression and intensity, but his treatment of Martin crossed every imaginable boundary of decency and professionalism. Between 2012 and 2013, Incognito waged what could only be described as a deliberate psychological campaign against Martin. His harassment included repeated voicemails and text messages packed with racial slurs, including the N-word, along with violent threats that left Martin living under constant emotional siege. The most incriminating evidence came from an April 2013 voicemail, where Incognito said, "Hey, what's up? You have a piece of I want F in your mouth. I'll kill you," delivered with mocking laughter. The message exposed how intentional and cruel his actions truly were. This controversy not only destroyed Incognito's public image, but also ignited conversations about the dark underbelly of NFL locker room culture, where hazing and power abuse were often disguised as team bonding. Critics highlighted how veterans like Incognito routinely forced rookies to cover the cost of extravagant trips and luxury meals, a disturbing practice given the financial instability of players on non-guaranteed contracts. The NFL's independent investigation, detailed in the 144-page Wells report, reviewed over 1,000 text messages filled with racial insults and degrading references to Martin's biracial background. Investigators revealed that Incognito wasn't acting alone. Fellow teammates John Jerry and Mike Pouncey were also implicated, contributing to what the report identified as a coordinated pattern of harassment. What made Incognito's behavior especially sinister was his fixation on Martin's mixed heritage, using phrases like "half-in" to exploit racial ambiguity as a psychological weapon. The torment extended beyond verbal abuse. Martin was coerced into paying $15,000 for team trips he never attended, exposing a toxic blend of racial and financial exploitation that made his everyday life unbearable. Incognito's defense only deepened public disgust, rather than expressing true remorse. He insisted the abuse was merely locker room talk. In a Fox Sports interview, he stated, "I'm not a racist, and to judge me by that one word is wrong," focusing on intent instead of acknowledging the emotional devastation he caused. His words showcased a deep misunderstanding of racial trauma and accountability. But if Richie Incognito's messages seemed disturbing, what came next pushed the limits of decency even further. Bill Romanowski, another NFL veteran, transformed physical aggression into racial humiliation. Over his 16-year career, Romanowski combined championship success with repeated incidents of racially charged violence. The linebacker, who contributed to 4 Super Bowl victories, amassed 1,116 tackles and 39.5 sacks, solidifying his reputation as one of the league's most formidable defensive forces. Yet his career became tainted by repeated racist confrontations and brutal altercations, many directed at black players, revealing a troubling pattern that extended far beyond competitiveness. The most infamous example unfolded on December 15, 1997, during Monday Night Football, when the Denver Broncos clashed with the San Francisco 49ers. In the third quarter, amid a pileup, Romanowski spat directly into the face of black wide receiver J.J. Stokes after being accused of grabbing his groin. The moment, captured clearly on live television, shocked audiences nationwide, immortalizing Romanowski's act as one of the most disgraceful displays of racial disrespect in NFL history.
Turned into a race issue at that particular point. Romo spitting into a black man's face. Was it racially motivated? I'd be hard-pressed to say it was. But did he do something that could be construed that way?
Projecting saliva toward a stunned J.J. Stokes, Bill Romanowski created one of the most humiliating images ever broadcast during an NFL game. To his credit, Stokes showed extraordinary restraint, choosing to walk away calmly instead of retaliating. Black Broncos teammate Shannon Sharp and Willie Green immediately condemned the league's reaction, a mere $7,500 fine, calling it racist and grossly insufficient. They argued that had the roles been reversed, the punishment would have been far harsher. Sharp highlighted the act's cultural and emotional weight, declaring that spitting in a black man's face is the modern-day equivalent of a cross burning, emphasizing its deep historical and dehumanizing symbolism. The event fractured Denver's locker room, forcing players to pick sides between team loyalty and moral outrage. Romanowski's violent record revealed that this wasn't an isolated lapse of temper, but part of a disturbing pattern of racially charged aggression. His history included kicking black Cardinals fullback Larry Centers in the head in 1995, which resulted in a $4,500 fine, and ripping off Titans running back Eddie George's helmet during a 2002 matchup. However, his most notorious act occurred in August 2003, when Romanowski tore off black teammate Marcus Williams' helmet and punched him squarely in the face, shattering his eye socket and ending Williams' career at just age 25. The assault exposed the full extent of Romanowski's unchecked rage and the racial undertones behind his repeated outbursts. Williams later filed a $3.8 million lawsuit, with a jury awarding him $340,000 in 2005. Though Williams publicly stated he didn't believe the attack was racially motivated, the incident deepened perception that Romanowski's behavior reflected long-standing racial hostility masked as competitive aggression. But what happens when a racism comes from someone who shares the same skin color as those he targets? This next NFL figure shows that internalized racism can be just as destructive. Ricky Watters. Ricky Watters' fall from NFL stardom to high school disgrace became a haunting case study in internalized prejudice and the abuse of authority. The former 49ers, Eagles, and Seahawks running back built a legacy of excellence, compiling 10,643 rushing yards and earning 5 Pro Bowl selections, securing his place among the elite. Yet his coaching career collapsed under shocking allegations of racist and abusive behavior toward his own players. In February 2013, Watters was hired as the first-year head coach of Oak Ridge High School in Orlando, Florida, a diverse institution where nearly 60% of students were black or Hispanic. Just months later, his tenure ended in scandal. During a September 13, 2013 game against West Orange High School, following a 53-24 loss, witnesses reported that Watters unleashed a tirade filled with racial slurs, excessive profanity, and physical intimidation, berating young athletes both in the locker room and on the sidelines. Multiple players and assistant coaches described the environment as toxic and emotionally damaging. The Orange County Public Schools investigation confirmed the accounts, concluding that Watters had acted out of control and violated multiple district policies. What made the ordeal especially disturbing was the irony. A black authority figure weaponizing the same racist language historically used to oppress his own community, inflicting deep psychological harm on impressionable teens. When confronted about his conduct, Watters deflected blame, insisting that his outbursts were directed at referees, not players. But for those who experienced his wrath firsthand, the damage was already done, a painful reminder that racism, even when internalized, can devastate from within just as powerfully as it does from without.
I thought we weren't getting a fair shake. I mean, truthfully, I didn't think we were getting a fair shake. I'm always going to stand up for my players. I'm always going to fight for them. But it was directed towards the referees.
The investigation found that Ricky Watters' misconduct extended far beyond verbal abuse. Witnesses accused him of physically intimidating players, shoving them and jacking them up with his chest during games, actions that had no connection to coaching and left young athletes feeling threatened and unsafe. The environment grew so unbearable that at least 2 assistant coaches contemplated quitting, and the entire team reportedly threatened to walk out if Watters remained as head coach. His reaction exposed a troubling inability to confront the racial dimensions of his actions. Watters admitted to using profanity during games, but insisted it was aimed only at referees, not players, a classic act of deflection meant to minimize responsibility. He denied the physical abuse allegations altogether, even though multiple witnesses confirmed his aggressive behavior. Speaking of alcohol-fueled racism, the next NFL player's drunken outburst at a team event completely derailed what once appeared to be a promising career with the Carolina Panthers. Carrie Collins. Carrie Collins' 17-season NFL career included Pro Bowl honors and several playoff runs, but his reputation remains overshadowed by a racially charged scandal that exposed a dark collision of addiction and prejudice. Drafted 5th overall by the Carolina Panthers in 1995, Collins quickly established himself as a franchise leader, guiding the team to a division title and earning a Pro Bowl selection in 1996. Yet, his early career became defined not by his athletic performance, but by an incident of racism that revealed how substance abuse can amplify deep-seated bias. The infamous event took place in August 1997, during a players-only party at the Panthers training camp in Spartanburg, South Carolina. While heavily intoxicated, Collins directed a racial slur at his black teammate Muslim Muhammad, allegedly saying something along the lines of, "I don't think of you as an N***********. I think of you as a paid N*********. The remark implied a twisted hierarchy, reducing a respected professional athlete to a racial stereotype defined by money rather than humanity. This wasn't treated as a slip of the tongue. Teammates described as part of a consistent pattern of racially insensitive behavior, worsened by Collins' dependence on alcohol. What made the comment especially toxic was its underlying logic, reinforcing the damaging notion that black athletes' worth is tied solely to their economic value, a reflection of the systemic racism long embedded in professional sports. The scene nearly turned violent when Muhammad, furious and humiliated, attempted to confront Collins before teammates intervened to prevent a fight. The fallout within the locker room was immediate. It shattered trust and exposed the deep psychological harm such words inflict, even in so-called casual settings. Collins' response only deepened the controversy. Instead of genuine accountability, he leaned into self-defense, claiming that alcohol, not racism, was to blame. He issued half-hearted apologies and insisted, "To my dying day, I will deny that I am a racist." That statement shifted the narrative away from the harm inflicted on Muhammad and other black teammates, making Collins' personal discomfort the focal point rather than the pain he caused. During a 2002 interview reflecting on his comeback with the New York Giants, Collins displayed the same selective memory, proudly discussing his career achievements while entirely avoiding meaningful reflection on his past racist behavior. It revealed how easily redemption stories in sports often skip over the unresolved wounds left behind, where apologies fade, but the trauma endures for those who had to endure in silence.
When I look at your stat line from this Indianapolis game, 23 of 29, 366, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Is this one of those under the radar from the public standpoint games, but from a Carrie Collins standpoint, something that you remember a lot?
Absolutely, without question.
The Carrie Collins incident deepened divisions within the locker room and spotlighted broader problems inside NFL culture regarding race and accountability. Reports even surfaced from Collins' college years at Penn State, suggesting he had previously used racial slurs, implying that the behavior reflected an ongoing pattern rather than an isolated mistake. And while Collins tried to pin his racist remarks on alcohol, this next NFL player had no such excuse for his repeated racially insensitive actions, both online and in public. Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa's rise as one of the NFL's premier defensive players has been continually overshadowed by accusations of racism stemming from his social media activity and political stances. The San Francisco 49ers defensive end, drafted second overall in 2019, quickly became an elite force, earning Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2019 and Defensive Player of the Year in 2022. Yet, throughout his career, Bosa has remained a lightning rod for controversy, drawing criticism for racially tone-deaf posts, endorsements, and statements that alienated teammates and divided fans. Before the 2019 NFL Draft, internet sleuths uncovered Bosa's old tweets and likes that painted a troubling picture. He had mocked Colin Kaepernick, calling him a clown for protesting police brutality, labeled Beyoncé's music trash, and dismissed Black Panther as the worst Marvel movie. Those seemingly opinions on the surface, the consistent dismissal of black art, activism, and culture hinted at deeper insensitivity, a quiet endorsement of exclusionary attitudes often disguised as personal taste. Even worse were Bosa's Instagram likes on posts featuring homophobic slurs and racist hashtags, indicating tacit approval of hate-filled content. The situation escalated further in 2024 when Bosa made a public political statement that many perceived as racially charged. On October 27, 2024, moments after defeating the Dallas Cowboys, Bosa interrupted an NBC post-game interview by flashing a MAGA hat endorsing Donald Trump. Coincidentally, on the very same day, Trump held a Madison Square Garden rally where several speakers made racist jokes about Puerto Ricans and Black Americans. The optics were explosive. The gesture, made on live television, seemed to link Bosa's victory celebration to a movement associated with white nationalist rhetoric. When questioned by reporters afterward, Bosa's response was coldly evasive. He brushed off concerns about the racial implications, framing the display as a personal right to expression while ignoring the broader context of hate speech surrounding the rally. His refusal to engage with the deeper meaning of his actions cemented perceptions of racial insensitivity and privilege often afforded to white athletes in professional sports.
To take that opportunity to make what appeared to be a political statement.
I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I think it's an important time.
Bosa's timing could not have been worse. Displaying MAGA support on the same day overtly racist rhetoric-dominated national headlines created an undeniable link between image and white supremacist undertones. The NFL fined him $11,255 for violating league rules prohibiting personal or political messages on uniforms or gear. Yet Bosa remained defiantly unapologetic, telling reporters that the fine was well worth it, showing no concern for how his act reinforced racial divides. The hypocrisy was glaring. While Colin Kaepernick was effectively blacklisted in the league for kneeling to protest racial injustice, Nick Bosa faced only a minor fine for publicly promoting a political figure associated with racist commentary. The contrast revealed how the NFL's enforcement of political neutrality often favors certain voices over others, tolerating displays rooted in exclusion and prejudice while silencing those demanding equality. Think Nick Bosa's controversies were bad? The next NFL player's online history went even further, containing explicit white supremacist messaging that somehow didn't stop him from becoming a franchise quarterback. Josh Allen. Josh Allen's meteoric rise to stardom with the Buffalo Bills has long carried a shadow of racist social media posts from his teenage years. The quarterback, drafted 7th overall in 2018 after a breakout college run at Wyoming, rapidly evolved into one of the league's elite stars, earning multiple Pro Bowl selections and guiding Buffalo to repeated playoff appearances. But as his career soared, disturbing posts from his high school years resurfaced, forcing fans and analysts to question how deeply racism is overlooked when attached to talent and marketability. Just hours before the 2018 NFL Draft, Yahoo Sports unearthed a collection of 2012 to 2013 tweets made when Allen was 16 and 17 years old. The posts contained repeated use of the N-word, sometimes framed as quotes from rap lyrics or television dialogue, but others were unmistakably original and racially charged. The most shocking example came from a June 2013 tweet where Allen responded to someone asking, "Why are you so white?" with, "If it ain't white, it ain't right." That phrase, historically rooted in white supremacist ideology, was a direct endorsement of racial hierarchy, not a misunderstood lyric or joke. What made Allen's post particularly disturbing wasn't a single slip, but the pattern. A repeated, casual use of racist language that revealed normalized prejudice and cultural ignorance. The ease with which he used the N-word in online banner reflected a larger issue: white teens casually appropriating racial language under the guise of pop culture while ignoring the trauma such words carry. Even when he claimed to be quoting songs, the act itself erased the cultural reclamation behind those lyrics, turning expressions of empowerment by black artists into vehicles of mockery and entitlement. When ESPN confronted Allen about the tweets before draft night, his response followed the predictable playbook of white athletes caught in racist scandals. He emphasized youth immaturity and lack of understanding, saying he was young and dumb and never meant to hurt anyone. While the apology sounded rehearsed, it avoided the core issue: the implicit racism embedded in thinking such language was ever acceptable. The controversy could have derailed his draft status, but it barely left a dent. Buffalo still selected him with the 7th overall pick, and within a few years, Allen became a franchise face, celebrated for his athleticism and leadership, while the racial questions quietly faded into the background. The entire episode underscored a double standard within the NFL's moral compass: how black players like Colin Kaepernick could be exiled for protesting racism, while white players like Josh Allen could casually post racist messages as teens and still become million-dollar superstars. Allen's story isn't merely about youthful mistakes. It's about a system willing to overlook racism when talent promises profit, and how selective forgiveness continues to shape the narrative of who gets redemption in America's most powerful sports league.
We were young and dumb. I was, 15, 16 years old at the time. And, I never realized that could hurt me 6 years down the line. So I want to be used, as a example for, kids that are 15, 16, that some things can't come up to you and reach you 6 years later. I'm extremely sorry for what happened.
In his pre-draft interviews, Josh Allen repeatedly described himself as young and dumb, avoiding any direct acknowledgement of the racist nature of his language. His apologies centered on self-preservation, emphasizing how those old tweets might hurt me 6 years down the line, rather than recognizing the pain such words inflict on black communities and teammates. The timing of the controversy, unfolding during Colin Kaepernick's ongoing protests against racial injustice, underscored the glaring hypocrisy in how the NFL handles race-related issues. Reports later revealed that several teams had known about Allen's tweets for months, but dismissed them as harmless high school mistakes, instead of serious red flags about character. This tolerance starkly contrasted the intense backlash faced by black players who publicly challenge racism, exposing a double standard in how accountability is applied. Buffalo Bills team captain Lorenzo Alexander admitted that Allen would need a good answer for his teammates, yet still offered him the benefit of the doubt, reflecting the leniency often extended to white athletes. Though the controversy caused Allen's draft stock to dip slightly, he was still selected 7th overall, and later secured a massive contract extension in 2021. But what happens when racism accusations arise without any solid evidence? The next story explores exactly that, a case that illustrates how unverified social media claims can instantly reshape public perception. Dan Skipper. Dan Skipper's improbable journey from practice squad journeyman to inspirational starter became clouded by unsubstantiated racism allegations that complicated his hard-earned reputation. Standing 6 feet 10 inches, the offensive tackle entered his 9th NFL season in 2025 after going undrafted out of Arkansas in 2017. His career was marked by perseverance, years of being cut, re-signed, and bouncing between teams before finally finding stability with the Detroit Lions. Skipper's long overdue breakout came in September 2022 when he started his first ever NFL game at guard, helping Detroit earn its first win of the season against Washington. The post-game locker room scene went viral, teammates chanting his name, coaches embracing him, the entire team celebrating the ultimate underdog story. For a brief moment, Dan Skipper was the embodiment of perseverance, proof that dedication could eventually triumph over rejection. But within hours, the internet flipped the narrative. 49ers defensive end Arik Armstead posted a scathing accusation on Instagram, claiming Skipper had called multiple players the N-word in games. Hard R. His post read, "So we cheering for racists now?" The phrase "hardy R" emphasized the most dehumanizing pronunciation of the slur, implying not casual ignorance but deliberate racial hostility. The timing of Armstead's post, released right as Skipper's feel-good moment was trending, maximized its impact, instantly shifting headlines from celebration to scandal. Fans, players, and reporters were forced to reevaluate the entire story overnight. Within hours, the man once praised as an example of persistence was now being condemned across social media, caught in a storm of outrage built entirely on a claim with no immediate proof. The situation raised uncomfortable questions about the balance between accountability and evidence in the digital era, especially in a league where reputations can be destroyed before facts are verified.
Defensive end Arik Armstead accuses Lions offensive tackle Dan Skipper of calling players the N-word multiple times and being a racist. This is on his Instagram. "So we cheering for racist now?" Called multiple players the N-word in games. Hard ER. That's all it takes is one person like Arik Armstead to come out with a complaint like this and get somebody fired, get somebody canceled, whatever.
The accusation against Dan Skipper quickly came under heavy scrutiny when fact-checkers discovered major inconsistencies in Arik Armstead's claims. Investigations revealed that Skipper had played 0 snaps in any games where Armstead was on the field, and in fact, hadn't even been present on the sidelines during any matchup involving Armstead's team. This glaring timeline mismatch raised immediate doubts about how Armstead could have first-hand knowledge of alleged racist remarks from a player he had never directly competed against. The situation underscored how easily public outrage can spiral without verified facts, transforming an inspirational story into a social media-driven controversy built on shaky ground. From unverified accusations to disputed claims, the next case took things even further, becoming one of the most infamous racial controversies in modern NFL history, sparked by a violent on-field clash. Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph's professional journey has been defined by a single chaotic night that forever altered how fans and analysts perceive him. The Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, drafted in 2018 out of Oklahoma State, has appeared in 21 games through 2025, serving mostly as a backup with modest numbers. Yet his name remains synonymous with one of the NFL's ugliest moments, the helmet-swinging brawl that erupted during a Thursday night football matchup on November 14, 2019, between the Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. The incident occurred in the game's closing seconds, with Cleveland holding a 21-7 lead, and the result long decided. After Rudolph completed a short pass, Myles Garrett, the Browns' star defensive end, tackled him aggressively to the ground. What followed was a brief scuffle that spiraled out of control, shoves, words exchanged, and then chaos. In a shocking escalation, Garrett ripped Rudolph's helmet off and used it as a weapon, slamming it down onto his exposed head. The brutal act drew blood, sparked an all-out melee involving over 30 players, and led to $732,422 in total fines, along with multiple suspensions across both teams. Initially, the altercation seemed destined to go down as just another violent outburst in a heated rivalry, until a racial element emerged that split the sports world. During his November 20th, 2019 appeal hearing, Myles Garrett claimed that Rudolph had called him stupid and **** are moments before the helmet strike, alleging that the slur triggered his reaction. Garrett later reiterated his claim in interviews, explaining that he hadn't wanted the detail to go public because he feared it would seem like he was excusing his behavior, but that he stood by what I heard. The NFL's response was swift and adamant. League officials launched what they described as a thorough investigation, reviewing all available broadcasts and field audio, but finding no evidence to support Garrett's accusation. Pittsburgh head coach Mike Tomlin also came to Rudolph's defense, emphasizing that the league's internal review found nothing that even remotely suggested a racial slur had been used. The event's aftermath left fans and players deeply divided. Some believe Garrett's account, citing the long history of unrecorded racial taunts in sports. Others sided with Rudolph, arguing that without audio proof, the claim unfairly branded him a racist. Regardless of which version people chose to believe, the confrontation became one of the NFL's most polarizing moments, a flashpoint revealing how quickly racial allegations, violence, and reputation can collide under the blinding spotlight of primetime football.
Allegations returned this past weekend. I thought it was appropriate that Mason is properly defended. It was a thorough investigation done by us and the National Football League. I don't think that was represented during that piece. These accusations are serious, not only in terms of Mason Rudolph's character, but his professional pursuits. Nobody on that field, as a member of the Cleveland Browns or the Pittsburgh Steelers, corroborated what was said by Myles Garrett. That was founded by us and the National Football.
The NFL's investigation, which included extensive reviews of broadcast audio, sideline microphones, and witness interviews, concluded on November 21st, 2019, that there was no evidence supporting Myles Garrett's allegation against Mason Rudolph. No teammates from either side reported hearing any racial slur, and even Garrett later admitted that proving his claim would be nearly impossible. The absence of corroborating evidence led many to believe that the accusation served as a post hoc justification for Garrett's violent outburst rather than a factual account of events. Meanwhile, Rudolph's unwavering denials and consistent narrative throughout the ordeal strengthened his credibility. He described the accusation as a malicious attack on my character, worse than the physical assault itself, expressing disbelief that Garrett would fabricate such a serious claim after initially apologizing for the incident. The entire episode revealed how a single unverified allegation could permanently stain reputations in the era of instant outrage and viral narratives. And in one of the most ironic twists in recent NFL history, the next player, celebrated for protesting racial injustice, found himself accused of using the very word he stood against: Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick's legacy as both a civil rights icon and NFL quarterback was unexpectedly complicated by a 2014 incident in which he was accused of using the racial slur he would later dedicate his career to condemning. The San Francisco 49ers star, who led his team to Super Bowl 47 and became a global symbol for racial equality through his national anthem protests, was at the center of controversy during a September 14th, 2014 game against the Chicago Bears at Levi's Stadium. The alleged incident unfolded in the fourth quarter, moments after Kaepernick threw an interception that resulted in a Chicago touchdown. According to game officials, he allegedly directed the N-word toward Bears defensive end Lamar Houston, prompting an immediate unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for inappropriate language. Houston later confirmed to the Chicago Tribune that Kaepernick had indeed used the slur, emphasizing that it was delivered with venom, not as casual banter or locker room familiarity. What made this event particularly complex was its interracial context. A black athlete accused of using a word that, within certain communities, carries layered cultural meanings but remains deeply divisive. The controversy ignited heated debates about who holds the right to use or police racial language, especially at a time when the NFL had just rolled out stricter penalties for on-field slurs.
Throwing a pick that set up a Chicago touchdown, Kaepernick allegedly used the N-word in addressing Lamar Houston. According to Fox Sports, Kaepernick was penalized on the field and later fined more than $11,000 for the alleged slur, but denied saying anything and will appeal the fine. Right now, we welcome back to the desk Nate Perlis, an 11-year NFL veteran, current free agent wide receiver. What's your reaction to this?
Well, allegedly, I'll just say allegedly. I'm going to say this. I don't think that he's the first player to use the N-word over these first few weeks of the season and even in preseason.
The NFL initially fined Kaepernick $11,025 for the alleged infraction. However, upon appeal, the fine was reduced to $5,512 after the appeals officer determined that the evidence pointed to general profanity rather than a targeted racial epithet. The decision noted that no conclusive audio existed, leaving officials reliant on lip reading in Houston's personal account. Kaepernick vehemently denied ever using a racial slur, insisting in post-game interviews that he had only shouted hell or other non-racial expletives in frustration after the interception. He maintained that the accusation was a misunderstanding blown out of proportion, a stark reminder of how easily perception and interpretation can reshape public narratives. In the end, the reduced fine reflected the uncertainty surrounding the incident, yet its irony remained unforgettable. A player globally known for kneeling against racism briefly accused of embodying the very prejudice he fought to expose. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown, keep the conversation alive by exploring the suggested videos on your screen right now. For more powerful, eye-opening stories from the world of the NFL,